Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. A recent long-form piece in The Atlantic asks how civilization can survive what we are now in, which is the post-literate era. It's inspired by several recent studies showing a steady decline in American literacy. In one 2024 nationwide exam, only 35% of high school seniors ranked proficient in analyzing complex themes in fiction or the effectiveness of an essayist's argument. From 1984 to 2025, the percentage of 13-year-olds who said they rarely or never read on their own for fun jumped from 8 to 29%. So the question is the age of reading over? David Bonagura joins us. David is a friend. He is the author most recently of 100 Tough Questions for Catholics, Common Obstacles to Faith Today. He's also the translator of Jerome's Tears. He's an adjunct professor at St. Joseph's Seminary and Catholic International University, and is the religion editor for the University Bookman, a review of books founded in 1960 by Russell Kirk. David, it's great to speak with you. How are you?
Hello, Marcus. Thanks for having me back.
So, if you and I were sampled for ourselves, we'd say the age of reading is not over. But clearly, these studies did not sample you and I.
That is correct, and I could. What I spend by, in the academic world, I don't consider those people normal, and I include myself in that as public nerd number one. But outside of that sphere, I mean, nobody I know talks about books. My aunt and uncle, who are deep into their septuagenarian stage, they're avid readers, and they talk about their books. But I don't know anyone else who talks about, not just reads, but actually, I read this, blah, blah, blah. People don't read. So we know that from just conversation and living, we just rattled off a whole bunch of statistics that confirm just our general experience. And for the kids, forget about it. The kids are just not interested in reading. And I hear college students, high school students say, they have to read, they're assigned this book. I just heard a kid say this just last week. Says, I'll just chat GPT it. And now he used the word chat GPT as a verb, which annoys me. And that's another conversation. But oh my! I mean, there's no interest in trying to actually read a book anymore. It's just, I could just get the answer and then I'm good and go back to doing whatever it is I'm doing. Videos and flashy things on phones are far more interesting apparently than books are.
Okay, so ChatGPT is now a verb. You know what? Our generation sort of allowed this to happen. We were the ones who turned Google into a verb.
Great. And your English is so malleable in that sense, not to go off on a tangent on this, but but it is connected in the sense that our language is so fluid in the sense that we could take nouns and since we don't make them verbs and nouns, and so Xerox and so many other things like that. We do it all the time, but it has something. But where do you encounter these words? You encounter words in speech, and you encounter words in print. And it's the print words that's really where we learn vocabulary. Sometimes it's through conversation, but it's generally through reading. And I remember when William F. Buckley Jr. died quite a few years back now, the front page title or obituary in the New York Times was, William F. Buckley, the sesquipedalian man of the right, dies at 84. Sesquipedalian. So I went to my dictionary, and sesquipedalian means a foot and a half, and in particular means a guy known for using a foot and a half long words. And Buckley was known, and he wrote many, of course, for writing for National Review, but he wrote many books, fiction, and also a number of spy novels and things like that. And he was known for this tremendous vocabulary. And I remember reading an interview with him. He said, why do you use so many of these big words that most people don't understand? He says, well, I figure if a word wouldn't be invented unless it had a specific purpose. So if it fits the purpose, I'm going to use the word, and I'm not going to be sorry about it or apologize for it. Without reading, we lose an element of language, and we become constricted to just what we hear. The printed word has a way where we can play with words more than we can when we say them. So just one other thing that we lose, I don't think that's something that's often counted when we talk about, what's happening now that we're this reading deficit and so on. The skill in the language and joy of our language, we lose that by not indulging in the written word as much as we ought.
So a big part of the capacity to do these things, and part of why I'm sighing, is a certain sadness. I remember, well, obviously, many of us remember many things from childhood, and I guess, like you, David, I might fall into the category of public nerd number one. And so I was going to say, hey, I represent that comment when you said it.
Well, welcome to the club. Happy to be with you. But I knew that already.
I didn't do a good job hiding it, did I?
No.
So just thinking about childhood, right? A big part of my childhood's happiest memories is either having a collection of books from my house library, I get a series of books from the bookshelf. I go to my little nook in the house and I'd stack up all my books and I'd sit in my nook and no one would bother me for hours on end and I'd just be devouring books, right? And if I ran out of books at home, I'd go to the local library, I'd rinse and repeat. It saddens me to think that experience is little to dying today.
Yes, it is. I mean, I have 8 children. The only one who's a serious reader who doesn't need a gun to force him to do so is my 13-year-old, and he'll do that. But he, like everyone else, is tempted by the siren song of the screens and the glitter and the glitz is just frankly more attractive than a book is, which doesn't glitter nor glitz nor do anything except sit there. And with that, you have all these just the messaging, the emails, whatever. I think it's just human nature, the way the brain works. Whatever may or might or is coming in on my phone or email tab is just more interesting than whatever book I have in front of me. And that's because I think that's a thing universal across the board. So it's important for those of us who, as you said, to kind of go into the corner. I think that practice is fading very, very quickly. But whenever we do read, we have to run away from those things. Otherwise, we'll be constantly have the book in our hand and constantly looking up as if we're twitching or something. Look, any messages yet? Any messages? Does anybody need me? Anybody need me? We go insane, and which is kind of like the opposite of reading. What happens when you go away in that little corner, like you were describing as a child? You're in your own little world and imagination. And we have all these things today with all this technology and blah, blah, they can make all these fancy movies and so on. But really what we're losing, we actually have impoverished the imagination because when you read a book, particularly a fiction book, it's the mind that pictures the scene and does the work and all the characters. When we see something on the screen, that the work of imagination is taken away. It is what it is, what we see in front of us. I remember I'm a big fan of Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, and I'm very excited for the Resurrection of the Christ to come out next in the spring 27. But I remember reading a commentary by someone whose name long escapes me, but he said that he wasn't going to see the movie because if he did, whenever he heard the Passion narrative or pictured it, he would picture in his head whatever it is was on the screen. So his ability to imagine the sufferings of Christ would be taken away from him by the fact that he just seen it represented, and therefore there's no getting around it. And having seen that movie many times, every time I think of Jesus' Passion, that movie comes into my head. Not that that's a bad thing, but I don't have the ability to imagine freely anymore, to create my own image of what something might be. And the imagination is just something that's so important, so precious. We see it with little kids, and we as adults all love it. But what do we? And of course, the real world has a nasty way of crushing it. But reading is really a way to keep it alive, particularly reading fiction. And it's so sad that it really has become a lost art. I wish I could tell you that I saw it. Things are different and things are coming back. I don't think they are. But nevertheless, for the few who do read and those who don't read and are willing to pick up a book, they have that opportunity that should be an enticement to develop that, not just develop the imagination, but to enjoy it, to live it. When we read these days, we always think in terms of utility. Well, I can get this information or that, which is why people want to use the AI to read and get the summary of the book rather than read the book itself. But it's the working of the mind in and of itself, the working of the imagination as an end in itself, no point beyond that. That's a beautiful thing. That's really part of the essence of being human.
I'm talking with a friend, David Bonagura, author most recently of 100 Tough Questions for Catholics, Common Obstacles of Faith. Today, we're talking about the potential reality of the end of the reading era. And we're going to keep diagnosing the problem a little more, but also, as both of us as fathers and avid readers, how to inculcate a love of imagination and imaginative reading in our children. Stay tuned, I'm Marcus Peter. Good afternoon and welcome back. I'm Marcus Peter. Talking with David Bonagura about the potential death of the age of reading, so to speak, and pathways forward. David, I want to, so you're a father, and obviously you're working hard to inculcate a love of reading in your children. One of the things you highlighted in the segment earlier that I'd like to invite you to speak to is that when you and I were younger and we picked up books, especially fiction books, we went into places in our minds. We went into places in our imaginations. We could live in those worlds we built for a long time. That's not a bad thing. That's actually a really good thing. The skill of doing that, however, seems to be lost. And so you said something that's making me think, are we afraid of imagining? Are we afraid of the work of imagination today?
That's a great point. Maybe because what is there left to imagine when we say now? You could say if you want, you don't need to draw a picture nowadays. You can say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a picture of whatever, and it's generated. I've always been a fan of religious artwork that's done by the great European masters. I have seen multiple church bulletins which usually have some sort of an image on the front of the gospel scene for that day. And it's clear as day that they are now, this is multiple churches around me on Long Island, that are using AI-generated images of whatever it is the gospel scene is for that Sunday. Boy, is that just infuriating. Can we please use the great masters of the past, how they use their imagination, rather than have some sort of machine do the thinking? And it's one thing for the machine to do the thinking, but to do the imagining for us. Man, boy, are we lazy, or are we just don't care? I don't know what it is as a culture now, but the fact that we don't even need to draw anything, which is, I have my 19-year-old son, it has become quite the drawer. Not that he's an artist per se, but that's what he likes to do in his leisure, is to doodle stuff and draw stuff, images and things. And I think that's great. And I don't know where he got that thing, that desire to do that, but the idea of letting the imagination run and let it just generate what it generates, as I said before, as an end in itself. It doesn't have to be monetized like we seem to think everything needs to do in this country. It's just something that's good to do and to enjoy being human for the sake of human. That's what it means to use these gifts of reason and intelligence and will and imagination that God has given us, and to allow those things to be the delight of our lives, and to use first you could use the imagination to enhance the spiritual life. St. Ignatius in his spiritual exercises speaks of the call of the king, and that's I believe that's week 3 of the spiritual exercises, how we're supposed to imagine Jesus calling us into battle to go do whatever it is that he's asking us to do, and that's going to be different for you, for me, or for anyone else who's listening. Those are the things that really can develop a person and make the imagination life an adventure. But if the book is a perfect way into that, and if we don't use the book well, we're going to lose that opportunity.
You and I both know the studies that are coming out expressing that, according to surveys, high school seniors are incapable of reading and writing at proficient levels. And now, I want to give some kind of context to the study. The arguments are that the seniors are capable of having conversations and exercising reason when it comes to certain ideas. I don't know how deep, how substantive, and how accurate their reasoning is, but according to the surveys, they're capable of doing that work. It's just when it comes to the written word, whether they're expressive writing or analyzing written works, they seem to be below proficiency. I invite your thoughts here, David.
Right, and that's a direct result of reading less.
Yep.
Because two things that we're talking about here. One is analyzing reading, the other one is writing. How do you learn to do both of them? Reading. Maybe the second one, writing, is not so obvious, but in order to write, you need to read, to have ideas and have a style, a way to imitate. It's just like learning from a guild of the master and apprentice, whether it be painting or learning how to work on a car or whatever. We learn to write by reading, and we learn to read better by reading more. And so it's directly proportional. If we read less as a culture, as young people, all of our reading skills are going to atrophy, just like anything else. If we don't, whatever skill we have, we don't use it, we lose it, as they say. The same is happening for reading in a very serious way. But so many people just shrug this fact off because, as we said before, oh yeah, I'll just get it from ChatGPT. I don't need to read the book. I get the answers from it right there. As if the act of reading is just about getting an answer, which is not what some reading is about that, but certainly not all reading is about that, and certainly not reading literature. Reading literature is absolutely not about getting an answer. It's about entertaining the mind and exercising the imagination, going on a journey. I am now, for the second consecutive summer, I'm doing it on audiobook while running, but nevertheless still enjoying the experience of The Lord of the Rings. And talk about a feast for the imagination. Oh my goodness. That thing is fabulous for that. And to just let my mind go and listen to, and the vocabulary and the words that go with it, it's what could be better in 20th century literature than The Lord of the Rings? What a gift we have in that. And it's like, I'm just going to watch the movie, or oh boy, that's just wasting life. It's terrible.
If I ever sensed in the Force that someone was saying, I won't read the books of the Lord of the Rings, I'll just watch the movie, I might just show up with Gandalf's staff and stamp it on the ground and go, you shall not pass. I'll just show up out of the blue and do that. But, even on a smaller level, so Alfred Lord Tennyson, I understand that era of poets. I understand all of that, right? But he remains to this day one of my favorite literary geniuses in his expressiveness. So, Charge of the Light Brigade, right? I still tear up when I read it. And so my son, who's 5, asked me the other day, who's my favorite poet? And so I told him Alfred Lord Tennyson, and I read him Charge of the Light Brigade. And I tried to explain the historical narrative as it was going on, and I found myself tearing up all over again. Because my imagination was riding with the words of the poem. I knew the history, right, but I also knew the emotion behind the words. Reading does that to the soul.
Exactly, and part of the beauty of it is it strikes different people in different ways. Some people might like a book more than others. There are very, very few Lord of the Rings out there, right? That's a one of a kind. My wife right now is huge into Jane Austen. Not my thing.
You and me both, brother.
I don't think
our wives would get along,
not
though.
My thing. She loves it. Good for her, right? That's part of the beauty of this, is that each individual soul is different. Each individual person is different. So reading has different ways of speaking to different people. Well, we have so many different types of books. Go into a bookstore, if those things still exist, and have a look at all the different categories that are there. Something you don't really get to if you just order books from Amazon.com. Never been to a bookstore. Well, you don't get to see just how there's so many different types of books out there. Or go into a library and see that the way that they're cataloged. There's so many different. We're so great as human beings as being able to create things and therefore able to enjoy things. And again, when we content ourselves with the lowest common denominator, which is just something that's on a screen because it's easy, well, we're missing out. And I have a 6-year-old in my house now, and he's learning to read, and just watching him do it makes me remember the other guys. My older one's learning, and it's hard to learn to read. I think once we know how to read, we take it for granted.
Yeah,
it's really a work, and he's tired after it. I remember my older children being tired after going through that effort too. People don't want to make the effort anymore. Of course, it's not the same effort to read a book when you're 16 or 66 as opposed to when you're 6. But nevertheless, it's, oh, gee, I got to read this. There's no pictures. Which way do I? Which way? I've had people do that. Adults like, oh, gee, I turned upside down. Like, come on, man, are you kidding me? You're really doing that? But that's where we are nowadays.
Oh, gosh. You and I are going to betray our ages as soon as I say this. You know that old song, TV killed the radio star?
Oh, I love that song, yes.
Yeah. So YouTube killed the TV star. And at this point, I think Amazon killed the bookstore, and screens have killed the libraries.
Yeah. I wish I could come up with another one to keep that one going.
No. I was just going through that sequence, right, about the denigration of culture. So I guess there's a point to be made here, right? In the pursuit of the advancement of technology, all of which can be guised under a good intention, we've really sacrificed a lot that was very good for us.
Absolutely, and we could be even ironic here, and often in these conversations, people like to go back to Plato, who thought that writing, which gives us the ability to read, writing would be the death of oral culture. and the death of memory. And in a certain sense, he's not wrong, but there's something with every innovation. There's a plus and a minus.
Yeah.
Right? We got automobiles. Just a quick example: automobiles. We can get it wherever we want to go, but we have pollution and we have accidents that can be fatal. Right, so there's downside, but what do? We weigh the plus and the minus, and we like cars, and we all have them. Some of us have multiples. The same thing goes when we have these new technologies. That's just part of living. There are always going to be new things coming into existence and things coming out of existence. The things that we want to hang on to, the things that we want to preserve, is reading one of those. And it has to be an intentional effort on the part of parents, as you were saying, in order to do our best to pass it on to our children. The running joke in my house is my 16-year-old just hates reading. So we mercilessly, and rightfully in my mind, make fun of him for that and just constantly hammering that. But again, I can't put a gun to his head and make him read. He's missing out. But among my others, reading is a constant thing that we emphasize here, and it can only be, you can lead the horse to water but you can't make him drink, whether it be that for a book or for other things. At least if you're a book person, keep bringing those to your children, that opportunity. And I would also suggest that audiobooks is an opportunity as an invitation to reading, because now that you can take a phone with you and listen to something, well, maybe that's a pathway into reading, perhaps, I hope.
Yeah, a pathway. It shouldn't be a replacement, but a good pathway. David, thank you so much. I've been talking with David Bonagura, author, most recently, of 100 Tough Questions for Catholics, Common Obstacles to Faith Today. And we've been talking about the death of the reading era, but pathways forward for parents to build reading imagination. I'm Marcus Peter.